Hey, you have reached the process. My name is Dr. John Bush. This is Lesson 94, Positional Targets, Part 11. At the team level, everything I'm trying to do is help you win your fantasy football drafts this year and crush your league if we can. We have gone through all the positions as far as targets in the previous lessons. Please go back and review that several times, kind of get your game going here. Let's get ready to draft multiple winning teams. One's not good enough, right? It's like potato chips. Can't have just one. Okay, just to let you know, I'm going to be in about 50 leagues, having fun. Okay, let's see what we're doing at the team level. Sometimes I forget what I've even done before. What are we doing? Oh, okay. Here we go. So this is kind of stepping back, but I love landscape data. A couple reasons. First, most pundits out there in fantasy football land do not focus that level. If so, it's very cursory. They certainly won't give you the metrics in their little Twitters and whatnot here, and puppet games and all the stuff they do, all the yucks they pull on their podcast. And I like to do things different. Again, you're seeing my process. If you don't like it, you know, don't do it. Okay. So this is looking at the targets of running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. And I used the purple circle for the top 5. So I was just curious. Were there any teams that were going to predominate in all 3? No. In any 2? No. So if you look, it's pretty clear that most teams excel in one positional area as far as targets. And that, I don't know, that's not how I would put a team together, but maybe they're, I don't know that much about coaching and whatnot. So, I'm just saying what I see here. And so I give the team, the running back, tight end, and wide receiver total estimated targets, or the sum of the targets as well. So the top one, let's see, it's 651 would be Pittsburgh. Yet the quarterback is real deep in the draft. So you could pick up Ben really late here. So that's kind of weird. But he doesn't rush much. And I understand that really gives you an advantage in quarterbacks. It has for a while. So I got that. Let's see who's next here. The next one is 613. That's Dallas, Dak, and then Atlanta with Matt Ryan, and Tampa Bay with Brady. So pretty much none of the younger fellas except, I guess, Dak there in the top 4. The teams that have concern for me, of course, would be Baltimore. They love to rush their quarterback, which is good for the quarterback, but it's piss poor for everybody else getting targets there. So just be aware of that. I don't draft a lot of their wide receivers. I will take their tight end, but Andrews is not, I think he's a little overdrafted at 4 or 5. Have concerns. Let's see, what else? Cleveland's not doing too well at 466. Tennessee's not doing too well. So they got Julio and Brown. So they have few targets and 2 target hounds there. That doesn't help the situation. Cuts the value of each of those here. So those are some things to look at and think about and consider here. So the top wide receivers would be Atlanta, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Dallas, and Pittsburgh. So I've tried to invest in those teams in best ball, etc., more than the teams that were at the bottom. Okay. Tight ends, Chicago, which is surprising. So Cole Kmet, maybe he's going to surprise us this year. Cleveland, Hooper's out there. He might be better than you think. Denver, of course, Noah Fant. Waller at 150. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia at 170. And Tampa Bay. With Tampa, though, we got Howard and Gronk, so that kind of cuts it. And Philadelphia got Ertz and Goddard, so that doesn't help. Waller's good, Fant's good. Those are the ones I've really tried to key on this year, obviously, besides Kelsey. Kelsey's at 150, and I should have circled that, so my bad. So let me circle it now. Yeah, look, there's Kelsey. So those would be the targets I have this year. Okay, and running backs, I love Hines in Indianapolis, Eckler at the Chargers, Kamara. I like Murray as well. New Orleans, San Francisco, Moster, I guess. Got that rookie guy. I don't know. Washington, I love Gibson and I love McKissick. I love both of those. I try to get both actually in best ball if I can to try to make sure I capture the predicted top targets from running backs there. So that gives us some nice little view. And of course, the opposite or the lower ones are those that would be scary, I guess I could say. Baltimore scares me at 62 for the running back here. What is it? Tennessee. Henry doesn't catch a lot, and I think the Evans, didn't he just get hurt? I think. The Rams, not so good. Denver, not so good. Tight ends, Arizona never uses their tight ends. Buffalo, Carolina, New Orleans. Everybody's saying Troutman. I don't know. I'm drafting him as my 2 at best. The Jets. Okay, I'm not happy with those. The low wide receiver targets, we talked about Baltimore. Cleveland's an issue. The Raiders are an issue. Anybody else? It's just dramatic. No, those are the 3 dramatic. I mean, there's some. New England is probably next, right, at 261. That's not so good. And New Orleans. Worry about this whole Michael Thomas situation here. Okay, so there's the quick view of things. Just use this to your advantage in your drafting. Move towards the tops and away from the bottoms would be my pretty much sound advice. So here is the team. Here's the estimated targets. And I just scaled them to league average. So I like to do that because when you see a target, you think, well, what does that really mean? Now, if it's a minus, that means it's below average. So right away, when I scan Minnesota, minus 40 below average, that's, that's not good. I don't want that. And Baltimore, 152. Goodness, that is scary, scary, scary. Tennessee scares me. Cleveland scares me. New Orleans, the Jets. Green Bay likes to run more these days. Who I really love in PPR is Pittsburgh, Dallas, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Chicago, Kansas City, the Chargers, Jacksonville. Those are the tops here. So I color coded in green and in red for the issues. So I like the graphs. I think it really shows the dramaticness of Pittsburgh here versus, say, Baltimore. The extremes predicted. This is not, the gospel, but it certainly gives you a feel for what it could be. Positional estimation. So what I did here is looked at each team and added up the total estimated and gave a percentage of the running backs, the tight ends, and the wide receivers. Wide receivers, for the most part, tend to dominate because there's more of them and whatnot. So, and then I plotted that on this graph here, these trend lines. So in blue here, so you can look at the actual numbers here, and I color coded. Green is high and red is low. So you can see some of the issues here. And I sorted by wide receivers and, positional wise. So Pittsburgh is high, but Buffalo percentage wise is higher. Arizona does good positional wise. Cincinnati, Carolina, the Jets, actually, that could surprise. So people were down on the Jets. Well, they may give us lots of PPR. Okay, so I plotted in blue each team's percentage of wide receivers. So you can see it going down from Buffalo to the Raiders are the top. So here's the bottoms here. That's not good. These are the ones I like, obviously. And then of those, let's look at the running backs in red and the tight ends in yellow. So for the most part, these up in here, look at the scale. I guess I need to put that in yellow here. Look at the scale here. So these teams really are dependent on their wide receivers. Look at the opposite end. These teams have more tight end and some even more running back than their wide receivers. That's very intriguing. So the type of teams are way different in what they're doing versus what's going on over here. So consider that when you're drafting. And then here's some teams that are kind of in the middle. They're moving towards this. And notice that the running backs really don't pass until almost the extreme bottom 3 or 4 teams here. So for the most part, most every team, positional wise, uses tight ends and wide receivers much more. And you see as we go into the mid here, the wide receiver and tight ends start becoming quite equal. So it's more of a balance. So since there's usually one, maybe 2 tight ends there, that kind of tips the scale to the importance of the tight end versus the whole platoon of wide receivers. So consider how those teams will be made up this year. I like to consider that when I'm drafting. Really like this chart here. It's neat. Tells you a good story that I don't think a lot of people are aware of or even can visualize. And, here it is. So I kind of even did a shorthand here. I took the extreme low teams and the extreme high teams, and I grouped them up into different types of groups here. And these little blocks of teams have a lot in common here. So this teams over here tend to be extreme in their wide receivers. Those are the ones to the left on the previous chart there. And notice that since they're biased to the wide receiver, that they tend to be extremely low in the other positions. If the team doesn't have a low or a high, then it's said to be average. So you can count. Let's see if I can. So that would be, you could put an A there for average. So if you want to consider the makeup of the team there, I can't draw an average too well with this. So you can consider what that means for drafting here. So for Arizona, and actually a bunch of these, and I'm not convinced with Pittsburgh, but I would pretty much ignore the tight ends. Okay, at least their trend in the past here. So here are teams that these top three are high in running backs, but they're average in everything else. And here are teams that are low in running backs and average in everything else. So these three teams are way different than these five teams. And here are teams that are just kind of average across the board, which, you could say, oh, they tend to be more balanced, which, that kind of can mean that regardless of the player you draft there, you're probably going to get some activity in PPR. That might be an advantage, especially late in the draft. And I haven't researched this, so I can't say, but right now it just hits me that these might be the teams that we can collect some late round picks here and has a better chance at kind of being average regardless of what you pick. And here's teams that are Cleveland and Philadelphia are high on tight ends. They're low on, so they don't use their wide receivers much. So Cleveland has OBJ and Landry, and they don't use them much. They would rather use the tight end. And they're average on running back. Philadelphia, the same story. So they're much alike. Indianapolis, Washington, and the Patriots all use their running backs a lot as far as targets, and they don't use their wide receivers. The Rams don't use their wide receivers. I'm sorry, the Raiders don't use their wide receiver. So picking wide receivers from this group, other than maybe the wide receiver one, I'm not sure the depth that I would get unless it's best ball or something on those. Here are some teams that looks like they make their living. These three make their living on their tight ends. They're kind of average on wide receivers and average or low in running backs. Saints are a little different. They don't use their tight end a lot. Be careful this year. Everybody's talking up Troutman. I'm just saying, in the past, there's the tendency not to use it. Maybe they'll change. New quarterbacks, things happen, right? This is all under Breeze. Okay. So again, this is landscape metrics, folks. This looks at broad swaths of team characteristics. This is stuff that I think you need to understand before you get too deep here and just kind of draft. Most people are not going to even listen to this and probably won't pay attention. That's fine. But those that will, I think you'll, build your skill set and you'll look things a little different. And think you'll, especially in tough decisions, this might really be helpful in tough decisions versus, oh, what should I do? Well, I'll just grab the lowest ADP of this group I kind of like. That's one way. May not be the worst way. I mean, I guess worst way would be flipping a coin. But this kind of data, the landscape metrics, might give you some insight. Okay. I put this together to give you some insight into your drafting, right? It's not for me to tell you how to do it. I'm just showing you things that I use to help me consider, right? I mean, it's all down to the draft and what you need and, you know, finding mistakes of others. A lot of times in drafts, here's something, you know, let everybody else make the mistakes. You just kind of, or if you're steady, you can end up not making mistakes. And sometimes that can put you into a nice position. Just don't make mistakes, right? Just don't get wacky crazy. And that can put you into the top half of the draft coming out, just not making any mistakes, right? So maybe that's a way, if you're just joining me and really are new to this, that might be the best approach early until you really get into using the metrics. And we'll try to do this series again next year as well, so you can come back and, you know, visit what I said for this year, and when we'll start again next year. All the data is reworked. Okay, I'll rework everything for next year as well. Okay. This is again looking at the teams and the different estimated targets, and I colorize that. And here's the position, and you can. And so what I did is I colorized the teams names based on their targets, so you can kind of instantly see in red what teams are going to be an issue, and then you can say, well, where is the advantage in those, even those poor teams. And so this is again a neat table here. You can look at this in multiple ways here, to considering how to approach. So a lot of this information we actually just gone over, but I just I colorized the team names and tried to make it a little bit more obvious as to what was going on and what the issues were for us here. Just by colorizing the team names might be a way to give you some advantage here. So green is good, no color is average, and red is bad here as far as estimated total targets total. And then you can pick your spots in that. And so when I look across at the league, okay, and again, this is what I like to do, is I like to scale the data versus the league average. So you see I showed you those numbers, 300, 200, and you're thinking, oh, there's a lot of numbers. Versus when I give you a percentage, when I say something 6% above average, okay, that sounds very intriguing. Or somebody's 11% below average. That doesn't sound good. So to me, I think a scaled approach and the metrics really brings it home, and then colorization I think is good. So I kept the team colorization here for total targets, but now I circled the top teams by scaled averages here, so you can really see what the best teams look like. Look at New Orleans over the 11%. They're the top team using their running backs for passing. Washington is next. So I definitely want to invest in those teams. San Francisco, New England, Indianapolis. Those are good teams to invest in. Here's our tight end. Cleveland, Denver, Raiders, the Giants, Philadelphia. They've done well looking at average there. Let's see, did I miss Kansas City again? No. Did I even put Kansas? No, here's 5%. That's not too bad. I mean, it's what, 7, and then here's 6. So you can stretch it like that if you want. This is over, what, about 5-year data here. Wide receivers: Arizona, Buffalo, Carolina, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. So Buffalo 1, Pittsburgh 2. I think the depth in those teams is worth your draft. Okay. Be concerned with the Raiders, right? Look at -13. Rutrow. Still have a problem with Cleveland. Don't care what's going on. New England has issues. Philadelphia has issues. Washington has issues on depth. To me, these teams are going to have problems deep. I would not go too deep into those teams there. So that's my team level metrics here. I think it's, you know, really, you could probably look at this and hear me a couple times to get this down. Take you some notes, right? This is lessons. You're back in fantasy football classroom, the professor, take notes, okay? Just, because if you draft in 2 weeks, you're going to forget this. So I'd take notes, okay? Or I'd watch this again the night before my draft or something. Wake up, folks. Let's crush these 2021 league. You can do this. I got you the tools. Oh, it's a lot. I don't have time for that. Hey, you start and take and cherry pick what seems to be something you can do. And eventually, if you keep following me, I think it'll get better. But I didn't start out at this level of information, right? Everybody has to learn. We have to pay for our education. You don't come on day one, right? You don't start at the top of the business. You're not the leader. Okay, you start in the mailroom, okay? Start at the bottom and work your way up. Well, it's too much. Well, if you never start, guess where you're going to be? In the toilet bowl of your league. You're the one eating waffles 48 hours in a row or whatever punishment. It's ridiculous. You don't have to do that. Okay, come on, man. Okay, y'all can do this. Okay, come back for the next lesson.